Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. The first day of practice at Monaco is over. The Ferraris are topping the timesheets, the Red Bulls right behind them, but Verstappen struggling slightly more than as usual. The same can certainly be said for Mercedes. Have some of their problems pre-Barcelona returns. The car seems to be bouncing once again. Undriveable, Toto Wolff says. Is there any chance they can fix this car before qualifying tomorrow? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. As always, good news for McLaren and Lando Norris fans. He was back in the car today. Apparently he's a lot better than he was with tonsillitis last weekend. Put in some cracking laps actually today as well, so potentially actually Lando the best of the rest right now behind the Ferraris and the Red Bulls, as we shall dive into. So it's good to see Lando's looking better. Now also on the McLaren side, there has been some talk about who, Riccardo's replacement might be. Another difficult day for him, we shall see here. But yeah, Pato O'Ward, he of course, him and Colton Herta, the two IndyCar drivers right now for McLaren. Now it seems like he's going to be staying on in IndyCar at least for the coming seasons. Now Herta has definitely indicated his intentions to become a Formula 1 driver, and especially with Riccardo, the way that's been going. Of course, the comments came out a couple of days ago from Zach Brown, if you guys aren't aware, that he effectively said, look, Riccardo is not living up to our expectations, not living up to his own expectations, and Riccardo commented on this to say, yeah, I agree, right, I'm not where I need to be, I'm not as close to Lando as I need to be, or I'm, of course, ahead of him as I'm sure he would like to be, but as he says, look, my skin is tanned, beautiful, and also thick-skinned, right, so he reckons he can take these comments on board, and of course, he had a pretty difficult time today in FP2, as we shall dive into. This also, because we did mention it yesterday, the whole jewellery shenanigans, seemingly the FIA has maybe backed down on this slightly. Apparently Hamilton basically doesn't really care about it. He apparently gave no thought to it coming into this weekend. At least that's what he said in an interview, and the FIA have apparently just said, okay, whatever, let's just leave it. I mean, look, obviously the safety thing, and it is technically in the rules that the drivers can't wear the jewellery that Hamilton has on, but he wouldn't be able to remove some of the jewellery without surgery effectively to get rid of some of the stuff. So yeah, bit of a nightmare for all concerned if they went to, fully down this route, and probably there are bigger concerns for the FIA to be having at the present time. But let's dive into FP1 then. So firstly noted that of course, the Ferraris, all the cars pretty much running the maximum possible load they can, the highest load rear wing, more efficient DRS that they have now. With that, both cars got that now. A couple of other tweaks as well, but of course they've got to figure out these cars exactly how they're going to run the setup, and Mercedes had a very different idea to what they wanted to do, going off initially with a very stiff suspension, which seemingly was causing them all sorts of issues around the relatively bouncy Monaco circuit. Not necessarily porpoising, that phenomenon returning, although probably to some degree here in the corners, because we even saw for Mercedes at Barcelona, Hamilton said that, okay, look, on the straights it's fine, but in the corners, turn 3, turn 9 at Spain, it was still causing them some issues. The comments came through from the kind of, the radio right here, the bouncing is absolutely crazy. He was talking about the fact that it, bouncing so bad, so bouncy out here, I'm losing my mind. Saying that they're going to have to put some more pant in the car for him to actually, bounce around so much in the cockpit, right? So a really interesting turn of events there in FP1 for the Mercedes. It was rather interesting in a way that their kind of initial car that they had at the start of the year that was bouncing all over the place on the straights, in the corners, in the slow corners especially, that was actually pretty much the fastest car on the grid. Now with this new version of the car with a new floor, the straight line speed seems to be much better. Their actual pace in sector 1 was rather good, which generally is kind of foot to the floor type sector, was pretty much better than most other teams outside of Ferrari, but it was sector 2 and 3 that they're losing in a lot of these slower speed corners. So they're going to have to figure out a lot about that, because the car definitely today, in comparison to Barcelona, seemed very difficult to drive. Hamilton was certainly struggling with it. Russell seemingly did a bit of a better job, but the top 3 from FP1 was still Charles Leclerc. He seems to always top practices right now. Carlos Sainz actually was 3rd, and Sergio Perez was 2nd. Verstappen outside the top 3 in both of these practice sessions. He certainly had a couple of, so far this season, suboptimal practice sessions on Friday, and that hasn't really cost him too much when it's got to a Sunday. But with Monaco being pretty much all about qualifying on Saturday, his difficult time he had today might make a pretty interesting circumstance when it comes to qualifying tomorrow. Now, as Sean Kelly actually points out, nobody has won a Grand Prix this season after leading FP1. So that's another Leclerc DNF confirmed. But this is what Toto Wolff and Mercedes have to say on this kind of bouncing issue that seemed to return. Toto effectively said, look, it's more like a setup problem. It's, not necessarily about the aerodynamics of the car. Maybe they went too stiff with their suspension, and that means that when you're kind of bouncing over situations or bouncing over bumps and over curbs and stuff like this, the car's all over the shop, which it certainly seemed to be, and there was an awful lot of complaints about for the drivers. Toto Wolff himself described it as practically undrivable, but he seemed kind of confident after FP1 that he would be able to fix this car. FP2, if anything though, wasn't really much better. They've got certainly a job to do ahead of Saturday, because usually when they've looked decent so far this year, it's been an FP2 where they've been able to extract some decent performance.
I think we have a ride issue. That's something that we had through the season, and is on the bouncing. Sometimes it's a combination between error and just stiffness. Today it's the stiffness.
Okay, so you're having to run the car so stiff to get the performance out of it around a street track that's picking up every lump and bump.
It looks like that our car performs because we were quick. Maybe not at the end where we had the hard tire on and we did the long rubs, but overall I think a good car, but it's just undriveable like this.
Okay, what can you do?
I think work on the setup, trying to make it a little bit more enjoyable for them.
And if it's fast, but the drivers say they can just about get around it, is that something they'll have to deal with?
Yeah, of course. You want to have a fast car.
You're going to have to wrap Lewis, give him not only elbow pads,
if it's fast,
knee pads, and if it's fast.
If it's fast, we make him all the pads he needs.
So as back into FP2, Mercedes go with some extra panning. Actually, they note here on the social media, like Lewis Hamilton's car, to deal with some of the bouncing effects and that they're having. And as well, basically, Toto Wolff said he reckons their car's actually quite quick, but the bouncing is causing them a lot of issues for the drivers, right? But if they can get a fast car, they don't mind about the drivers bouncing about, because of course in a race setting it's slightly different. But it's qualifying where Mercedes have struggled generally so far this season, and despite their race pace looking pretty good in FP2, that's not going to matter all that much around a circuit like Monaco where qualifying is so important. And also pit stops are very important, and Mercedes has been one of the weaker teams so far this year in terms of their pit stop pace. This is kind of one of the moments right here that Monty Brundle noticed actually here on Sky Sports, because basically the Mercedes come flying around this corner, had a really difficult time coming over this curb and then kind of getting back on the power effectively and not bouncing around after this straight. This you can even see here, this Mercedes is practically sideways, which is far from where they want to be. And Brundle said effectively, look, they've got a lot of work to do overnight as they want to make this car actually be able to compete for front row, second row practically on tomorrow, because right now the Ferrari seem to be significantly ahead, the Red Bull's right behind them, and then Norris, if anything, is kind of the best of the rest, at least on some of the other teams right now. We'll have a look at the final standings here in a second. Some other issues across the board for some of the teams. Russell actually said power unit feels poor at the moment. Whether this is, classic mind game stuff with the Mercedes, they turn it down massively and, just do all this type of stuff, because we've kind of wondered with Mercedes at the start of the season, they're like, okay, these lads just Sam, but again, they're saying the car's not that good, it's actually pretty good, and now they seem to have got a little bit of their groove back. They might be kind of, playing in these mind games a little bit more than maybe they have done for the last couple of months, but certainly this weekend it doesn't seem to be all sunshine and rainbows by any means, and if they get second row, that would be a massive achievement seemingly right now, based on their performance so far this weekend. Of course, all could change tomorrow, but it's unlikely to change with the Ferraris at the front, because they were looking at rather good around this circuit, as of course we expected them to, as Charles says here, though, something weird happened with the clutch, so apparently they're going to look into that one. Of course, they have certainly this season had some reliability issues. You wouldn't imagine around Monaco some of those issues are going to return. The main problem is going to be if you bin it in the wall. But in fairness, there has been some issues with other teams, right? Sebastian Vettel did his best to bin this in the wall. The fact that he saved this is remarkable. He comes around that very corner we were just looking at. Brundle was standing effectively right here, and they come around the corner. He almost lost it in this wall. I can't believe he didn't, to be honest. And then Danny Rick, just a few seconds later, does exactly that, right? He comes around this corner, loses the rear ends, smashes it into the wall, and eventually goes powering into the barriers. And difficult scenes for him, right? He's had a tough time lately. He put it in the wall. He was talking about the kind of setup. They went a bit aggressive on it, but when it rains, it pours, it seems, for Daniel Ricciardo right now. So that's obviously difficult for him. Of course, this is the session if you want to push it hard. This is the session to do that, because they can fix the car for tomorrow before qualifying. Whereas in FP3's case, that's not really the case, right? So you've got to be careful tomorrow more so than in this session. But yes, Daniel Ricciardo that eventually puts it in the wall. There were so many issues as well around this turn one. There was so many lockups going on, at flat spots all over the tyres. Verstappen did it, Perez did it, Magnussen did it, Hamilton did it as well, going into what seems to be a very tricky turn one, especially on these really fast laps. So that's definitely something to watch out for tomorrow as well. Also got to talk about Valtteri Bottas, right? Because coming into this weekend, there was a bit of talk as well about the fact that this Alfa Romeo is very good, it seems, in the slow speed corners. They might be competitive this weekend. Bottas is a good qualifier, of course, but he had so many issues today. He barely got a good lap time even recorded, and the first one I saw him do was pretty much he was taking it very easy because he hadn't got the FP1 stint in that the other drivers have had. They could kind of build up over the day and build up their confidence over the day, because apparently gearbox failures, MG UK failures that Schumacher had as well. So yeah, lots of teams encountering reliability issues right now, and certainly reliability is at least shaping up so far to kind of be the story of the season. The team that has the best reliability should probably win, at least out of the top dogs. It's probably Mercedes that has the best reliability on the grid right now, but of course they're not quite at the front as of yet, especially around a circuit like Monaco. So P1, P2 for both Ferraris, a 112.6. Pole last year was something like a 110.3. So we kind of expect around a circuit like this, these new cars to be at maybe a couple of seconds off the pace, but possibly tomorrow into the 111 highs, that could be plausible as the circuit kind of rubbers in. The drivers get a bit more confident, because these drivers are going to have to be sending it to the max tomorrow, because that, of course, qualifying round, it was so important, right? Get a good lap in and then absolutely go pedal to the metal. I'm sure drivers like Verstappen will relish the opportunity to do that, but he's certainly going to have to up his game to take down these two Ferraris. A very close forward affair between Sainz and Leclerc in that session. And yes, once again, it's Perez third ahead of Verstappen. That is rare. Don't see that too often where Perez outqualifies his teammate. Not really outqualifies, but it's only practice in 2 consecutive sessions. There was talk from Nico Rosberg, right? Okay, Verstappen struggled somewhat uncharacteristically here. Of course, he's only a 10th back on Perez, but there was definitely some frustrations coming across there on the radio, and the fact that he's up pretty much 5 tenths behind where Leclerc was and where Sainz was is certainly going to be a bit of a concern there going into qualifying, right? Because we thought the Ferrari could be a good car around here. Early in FP1, it felt like maybe Red Bull had a bit of an edge on them, but as it turned out, Ferrari once again leading both sessions. Charles Leclerc with his home race leading both sessions, so he'll certainly want to translate that into pole again, and hopefully, if it is case, translate that into the race victory, as they probably need around here, given the fact that this circuit theoretically suits their car rather better than it does the Red Bull. And Norris P5, got to give him some credit here, 6 tenths off the pace. Russell was just behind him. Hamilton had a pretty tough time down here, didn't really get too many great laps in. He had, of course, the issue with the lockup, and then did some pretty decent running in terms of race pace, but as I say, race pace, maybe not too crucial around a circuit like Monaco. These are also interesting, I thought, of note here. These are kind of the sector rankings. This, I'm guessing, in the Mercedes series, George Russell. But so you can see in Sector 1, they're dead even with Red Bull in terms of their fastest sector. But, Ferrari's still about 2 tenths up on where Mercedes and Red Bull are just in Sector 1. Ferrari have the fastest sectors all across the board. Red Bull losing about 2 tenths of a second in every single sector. Sector 2 a little bit better for them. But Mercedes lose a lot of time relative to in Sector 2 and Sector 3 to the top dogs, right? They've got to think about that one because the suspension or the bouncing or whatever, they even said they were going to bring some new parts this weekend to try and help them out here in Monaco, a circuit that's never been too kind to them generally over these last several years, even through their dominant periods. And the story doesn't necessarily seem to be changing. So 7 tenths off the pace, of course, that's pretty much where they were, in fairness, in qualifying back in Spain as well. 6 tenths, I believe, 6.5 tenths was where Russell qualified, and Hamilton right behind him in Spain. So maybe just a similar story this time around. But with qualifying, of course, incredibly important. It's something they are certainly going to have to focus on overnight. This from Nico Rosberg. He has a few words to say for both Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, struggling a bit. He said actually Max has been a bit off today, where he usually is. So we'll see if he can turn that one around tomorrow. But yeah, just to mention this as we close out from F1 Stats Guru. The last, 7 years or so during the V6 era, we've had a couple of repeat pole sitters, but every single year it's always changed hands. So of course we see Lewis Hamilton 2019, Charles Leclerc was on pole last time before the difficult circumstances that he ran into. Possibly he's going to go for the back-to-back. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, and I'll see you next time.